You're welcome. This is still News Central. Over the last, 40 plus minutes, we've been at the Jubilee House where Captain retired Forjo has been walking us through the report of that unfortunate August 6th Z9 helicopter crash. Has been detailing what the investigation has been about and the findings as well in the last 40 plus minutes. And Kemini and myself, we've been listening in to the revelation. The conversation is that this should bring some finality to all of the questions that have been asked. But from what he's telling us, or from what the investigative committee is telling us, is that the accident occurred as a result of a number of things. One, very poor visibility around the terrain area, which forced the pilot and his crew at the time to resort to wanting to power up because they could see the terrain which they were seeking to avoid, but because of the environment and for a want of a better word, aerodynamics in relation to what was happening within that place, the helicopter lost power, and then it smashed into the plain terrain, resulting in the accident that we saw, which is, to put it very simply, what caused that accident on August 6th.
Absolutely. I also think that it's instructive to note, based on what they have said, that it wasn't because the pilots didn't know what to do. It wasn't because that, the helicopter was sabotaged. Remember that there were concerns as to whether or not this was a targeted incident that took place. There were concerns also about whether or not one of the 8 may have been a target of the incident. Now we know clearly that none of that, holds true. The investigators have investigated the incident, and they tell us that, look, this was a weather incident. They tell us also that apart from that, it caused the visibility issue, which you have spoken about already, the downdraft, which they tell us, which essentially really, as he explained, is just the movement of the wind in their flight path. And, he also answers questions as to whether or not there was monitoring of the airplane, or it really went off the radar, and how to put, the question Komla Kluche asked, very important, because in his report, he recounts how there was no monitoring. There was real-time monitoring. Absolutely. But then also we heard that it had gone off the radar. So he explains the two situations, and it gives a clearer picture. I don't think it gives all the closure we need, but it takes us somewhere. It gives us an idea of what has happened based on what the investigators found.
And it's important to mention that it gives some bit of closure, and some bit of closure with respect to what happened on the day, because that is what has stuck out for everybody. What really happened on the day of August 6th, which resulted in what it is that we witnessed, and the darkness which hung over the country for quite a while. This investigative work has answered that bit of the question, what happened, but it's opened up further questions with respect to additional equipment that the Ghana Air Force needs, and the fact that we've operated these flights without some of these extra safety requirements. And he mentions that, yes, the aircraft was indeed airworthy, but there were certain additional features. Had it been a part of the aircraft, it could have aided the crew pilots to have made better judgment and better decisions with respect to what it is that transpired. And so, based on what it is they had to work with, unfortunately, the downdrafts and the altitude change and all of that saw the crash coming down pretty hard and resulting in what it is that we saw. But there are extra details as to why we've operated in the manner that we have until this unfortunate accident, now prompting and drawing attention to the fact that there are certain safety gaps within our fleet which we've been managing. And these are very important questions, because if you speak to persons within the armed forces, persons within the presidency, they will tell you that our president has been on this flight even this year, on this Z9 to be specific. And so, yes, he answers the question, and he will raise further questions as to in the path of the flight and the operators, when the flight was delayed for an hour, and then it was cleared subsequently to go at, was it 9:14 thereabout? Was that a good enough decision taken within that time? Is a question that can be asked, because from the report he says that visibility was around 200 meters, which wasn't entirely too great from
his
the understanding that we get. And so it answers the question as to what happened on the day of the incident and what may have caused it, because there were lots of conspiracy theories. Someone says it was targeted. It could have been the Galamseyers themselves who were shooting at the aircraft, amongst many others. In fact, you had even mentioned when we were listening whether or not it had landed before, because there were those who made the argument that it made a pit stop somewhere before the pilots decided that they were going to proceed and make their journey to Obuasi, amongst many other things.
And just to be clear, the investigation today did not indicate, it didn't say it's quiet about whether or not that incident took place. Now, if they were monitoring, they should be able to tell us whether it had a pit stop.
Well, I'm careful not to perhaps want to glean a bit from, because that would have been very important information to leave out. The fact that it made a stop somewhere, and then a decision was made again to subsequently continue the journey. Then that would have... But that's why I say I'm just seeking to infer from the fact that it wasn't mentioned to suggest that perhaps there was no such thing before they made their way there. But hopefully these recommendations constitute a big enough basis for changes with respect to what happens within our Air Force, amongst many other things. But you can't take us on to some other matters right now.
Well, indeed, while we work towards bringing you more on the reports we have just heard from the Jubilee House, we'll turn attention to issues around Parliament, because the Appointments Committee will present its report from the vetting of Chief Justice nominee later this week for consideration and approval of Paul Bafo-Bonny, whose vetting was characterized by intense exchanges between the minority and majority leaders. A long-held minority position that his appointment was born out of alleged legal breaches in the removal of Gertrude Torkornoo fueled agitated emotions that got leaders going neck to neck on unrestrained objections that forced multiple breaks. Christian Yali unpacks all in this report.
It started with drama. The minority leader's description that Justice Bafo-Bonny is a disputed nominee attracted sharp objection from the majority leader.
We gather to vet a disputed nominee for office of Chief Justice of Ghana. This should be a moment of national pride and institutional renewal.
I have an issue. The ranking member has no right, no lawful authority to raise anything about what happened in court, the processes leading to a removal of anybody. I am objecting to the use of the term disputed nominee, because there's no dispute before us regarding the nomination.
The exchanges continued, prompting a break for cool heads to prevail, but the minority had prepared to walk out.
You can't just be allowed to run down everybody and get up and walk because you are Afenyo Macken. Why? It will not be allowed. I am going to look, this whole issue about you making a preliminary statement, show me a rule that says that you have a right to make a preliminary statement.
We reject the nomination. We would yield to you to proceed whilst we exit this committee room.
So we thank you very much, and we wish you a very good luck. Honourable members,
Justice Bafo-Bonny responded to a concern that he failed to empanel judges to hear Justice Torkornoo's substantive case.
A person who is not a lawyer, I will put it down to ignorance. I will say that maybe the person is uninformed about legalities, so I will pardon. But if a lawyer makes a statement like this, I would think that it is populist and maybe downright mischievous. The Chief Justice cannot be accused of failing to list cases or a panel, when the case is not even ripe for hearing. A case is ripe for hearing when pleadings have closed.
He hinted at plans to decongest the prisons using the Justice for All program.
It is a border. I think that it was particularly for these minor offenders that the Justice for All program was introduced. It is something that I want to reignite, revamp it, so that we can have the Justice for All back on the road, so that we can get rid of some of these places.
He anticipates a 24-hour legal system, blaming the sinking image of the judiciary on justice delays.
There are some cases that do not move fast as a result of, as I said earlier, the technicalities associated with our rules. We also recognize the fact that there are some judges and magistrates who do not put up their best. And all these add to the creation of backlogs.
Well, away from that, expectations are high as the finance minister prepares to present the 2026 budget statement. Financial analysts anticipate that the 2026 budget will prioritize agriculture, education, energy, the health sector, infrastructure development, and provisions for implementing the 24-hour economy.
Ahead of the budget presentation, senior lecturer at the University of Ghana and executive director of the Center for Policy Studies, Dr. Edu Osu Sarkodie, says he does not foresee the introduction of new taxes. He emphasizes that the rising cost of living should be a key consideration in next year's budget.
Last year's budget, this year 2025 budget focused on stability, and we all understand why. We had to stabilize in terms of the fiscal deficit, the public debt, inflation, exchange rate, which we have done as a country. So kudos to us. The next stage is to take off with investment in infrastructure, investment in human capital, and investment in key areas that can grow and create more jobs. I think this is what we are looking at.
Lawyer at GOB Law Consult, Gloria Ofori-Boedu, says she hopes to see more gender-responsive allocations reflected in the budget.
I'll appreciate that there's more funding given to the Gender Ministry, to the Ghana Education Service, even some form of sexual prevention fund to prevent all these, to promote public education, family education, children education, even children as young as kindergarten, so that they don't fall prey to sexual predators.
Well, ahead of that budget presentation by the finance minister, expectations from citizens and businesses alike are high. My colleague Nura Mohammed took to the streets of Accra to gauge reactions ahead of that public reading of the budget.
So the finance minister will solve it based on the coffers of the country. And it is gradual, it's not something that can be addressed immediately. Let us try to stabilize the foreign exchange because we depend on import for survival.
Everything is okay. To my expectations, so far so good. The economy is okay. I don't see any challenges, I don't see any struggling.
I'm looking forward to them including the nurses' requisitions that they made in their budget so that the nurses will have their free, things that they ask for and then work efficiently in their various hospitals.
My expectation is that we should get more contracts that will fetch us money. Yes, we need work to do. We don't need the money, we need work to do. The system is so hard because For some time now, some of us are in the house.
As November 13 lurks, as anticipation builds ahead of the 2026 budget presentation, one thing is very clear. Ghanaians are looking beyond promises. They want a budget that delivers real relief, more jobs, stability that reflects in their daily lives. The coming weeks will show whether or not government can meet those expectations and maintain public confidence in its economic direction. Nura Mohammed for TV3 News, Accra.
And for us here in the studio, still a lot to unpack in terms of this news week. We've just done with two, vetting, and then this report. The finance minister is expected a lot later in Parliament as well. Trust us to bring to you all of the details as they happen. I am Mawina Egbeta.
And I am Kemeni Amano. We'll see you same time tomorrow. Next is the afternoon show. Bye-bye.